There comes a moment in every long life when certainty begins to loosen its grip. Not all at once, not dramatically, just quietly, like an old clock that starts to drift. You still hear it ticking. You still trust its rhythm. But somewhere deep inside, you know, it's no longer keeping perfect time. I remember a man once telling me, late in his life, the older I get, the less I trust the things I was once absolutely sure about. He wasn't talking about politics, or money, or people. He was talking about reality itself. And now, strangely enough, the universe seems to be saying the same thing. A physicist named Adam Rees, a man who has spent his life measuring the expansion of the cosmos, looked at the data and said something quietly unsettling. We may have misunderstood the universe. Not miscalculated, not slightly off. Misunderstood. Let that sink in. For nearly a century, we believed we had it figured out. We built what scientists call the standard model of cosmology, a framework so elegant, so precise, that it felt almost final. It explained how the universe began, how it evolved, how galaxies formed, how everything came to be. It was, in many ways, humanity's most complete story of existence. And like many stories we tell ourselves over a lifetime, it worked beautifully. Until it didn't. There is a number. Just one number. It's called the Hubble constant, first introduced by Edwin Hubble. It tells us how fast the universe is expanding. Not long ago. Not in theory. Right now. You would think something like that would be straightforward. 2 methods. 2 measurements. Same universe. Same answer. That's how truth is supposed to behave. But truth, especially at the edges of understanding, doesn't always cooperate. One method looks backward, deep into the ancient light of the universe. It uses data from the Planck satellite to reconstruct the early cosmos and predict how fast it should be, expanding today. That method says 67. The other method looks at the present, measuring distances between stars and galaxies, using real observations from teams like SH0ES, led by Adam Rees. That method says 73. Now, if you're young, that difference might not sound like much. 6 units, a small gap. But in cosmology, this is not a crack, it's a fault line. It changes the age of the universe. It shifts the timeline of everything. Stars, galaxies, life itself. It means, somewhere, something is off. When humanity launched the James Webb Space Telescope, many believed it would resolve the problem. Like a wiser set of eyes replacing old ones. There's a kind of comfort in that idea, isn't there? That better tools will restore clarity. That sharper vision will bring agreement. That the universe, when seen clearly enough, will make sense again. But life doesn't always reward clarity with comfort. And neither does the cosmos. The Webb telescope looked deeper, sharper, more precisely than ever before. And what it found was not resolution. It was confirmation. The higher number, the uncomfortable one, held steady. Again and again. It's like checking the time on 2 clocks in your house and realizing neither agrees with the other. At first, you assume one is broken. Then you realize both are working perfectly. And that's when the unease begins. There is a kind of wisdom that only comes with age. It's not about knowing more. It's about recognizing how much you don't know. When you are young, contradictions feel like problems to solve. When you are older, they feel like invitations. The universe right now is offering us an invitation. 2 truths, both supported by evidence, both refusing to yield, and in between them, a mystery. At a conference, another great physicist, David Gross, was asked whether this disagreement should be called a problem. He paused, and then he said, "Call it a crisis." But here's the thing about crises, whether in science or in life. They rarely mean what we think they mean. We hear crisis and imagine collapse, failure, the end of something. But often, a crisis is simply the moment when an old story can no longer contain reality. As if one contradiction wasn't enough, The Webb telescope revealed something else, something stranger. It found galaxies in the early universe, just a few 100 million years after the Big Bang, that were too big, too mature, too structured. Like meeting a child who speaks with the voice of an elder, some of these galaxies rival our own Milky Way in mass. But they shouldn't exist that early. Not according to the model. Not according to the timeline. At first, scientists feared the worst, that the entire framework of cosmology might be wrong, that everything needed to be rebuilt from scratch. But then came a quieter realization. Some of those galaxies weren't what they seemed. They were being lit up by ravenous black holes, cosmic engines that made them appear larger than they truly were. An illusion, a trick of light. And isn't that familiar? How often in life do we mistake brightness for substance? Intensity for truth? Even after correcting for those illusions, though, something remained. More large galaxies than expected. Not enough to destroy the model, but enough to bend it. Then came something even subtler. Galaxies shaped like elongated cigars, stretched in ways the standard model didn't predict. A small detail, perhaps. But in science, as in life, it's often the small details that whisper the loudest truths. Because these shapes hint at something deeper. That dark matter, the invisible scaffolding of the universe, might not behave the way we thought. And dark matter isn't just another ingredient. It's the foundation. Imagine discovering, late in life, that the ground you've been standing on isn't solid rock, but something softer, stranger, less certain. Would everything collapse? Not immediately, but everything would need to be reconsidered. There is another discrepancy, less famous, less dramatic. Scientists call it the S8 tension. It measures how clumpy the universe is. And again, the observations don't quite match the predictions. Think of it like this. You've spent your whole life believing the world follows a certain pattern. And then, in small ways, subtle ways, you start noticing it doesn't. Not completely. One contradiction can be dismissed. 2. Begin to form a pattern. We often imagine knowledge as a destination, a place where everything finally makes sense. But the truth, one that both age and science eventually teach, is this. Understanding is not a place. It's a process. Right now, humanity is living inside a question. The most precise measurements ever made are disagreeing with each other. And yet both appear to be correct. There is something happening between the beginning of the universe and now, something we have not seen, not measured, not understood. And that's where the story becomes beautiful. When we are young, we crave completion. Final answers. Clean conclusions. A universe that behaves. A life that makes sense. But completion is often an illusion. Even the standard model, the crown jewel of cosmology, is now showing cracks. Not because it failed, but because it succeeded, far enough to reveal its own limits. And that is the paradox of progress. The better your map becomes, the more clearly you see where it ends. If an elder could speak for the universe, I imagine they would say something like this. You thought you understood me because your story worked for a while. And it did. It served you well. But I am not a story you finish. I am a story you grow into. There is humility in that. A quiet, grounding humility. Because what we are witnessing is not the failure of science. It is science working exactly as it should. In the 1990s, scientists faced another contradiction. The universe appeared younger than its oldest stars. An impossible situation. A breaking point. And then they discovered something extraordinary. Dark energy. A force accelerating the expansion of the universe. Something no one had predicted. Something that changed everything. What looked like a dead end became a doorway. And now we stand at another doorway. Maybe the answer lies in something called early dark energy, a brief burst of expansion in the infant universe. Maybe it's a new property of space-time. Maybe it's something we haven't even imagined yet. But whatever it is, it's waiting. If you could step outside the universe and observe us, you would see a small species on a pale blue dot orbiting an ordinary star, arguing passionately about whether reality is expanding 6% faster than expected. It would look absurd, and it would look magnificent, because this is what it means to be human, to notice the mismatch, to refuse to ignore it, to keep asking, even when the answers become uncomfortable. In the end, the universe is not broken. Our understanding is, and that is not a tragedy. It is an opportunity. Because every time reality refuses to fit our expectations, it is offering us something rare, a chance to see deeper, to think differently, to grow. The elder understands this. They don't cling to certainty. They listen for what no longer fits. They recognize the moment when the old story must be released. And perhaps that is what the universe is asking of us now. Not to panic, not to defend what we thought we knew, but to remain curious, to remain open, to accept that the map is incomplete, and to feel, not fear, but wonder, at what lies beyond its edges. Because the next version of our understanding, when it finally arrives, will not just fix the cracks. It will reveal a universe, stranger, deeper, and more beautiful than anything we have ever imagined.